Hello, men and brethren. Hey, today we're going to embark on a little project. I need to make a transition, and it needs to transition two different ways and have a little offset to it. Basically, I have a customer that's got a system that was installed by Joe Sixpack, and he was smoking dope when he did it. It has basically no filter. It's a small air handler, and the only filter that it has is the filter rack that is factory to the air handler. Of course, the customer, the homeowner, is a single girl. She's probably 25, 30 years old. She really, you basically have to dig the filter out of the air handler with a cotton picking fork or something. You just can't change the filter, so she doesn't. Anyway, gonna build a filter rack for her. Now, if you remember, and I will try to, ever how it works, put one of those clicky click cards up to a earlier post or earlier video where I actually made these filter racks, and I've got them on hand. I just pick out a day and build a bunch of filter racks. So we'll get started on this transition and go from there. So this is one of my filter racks that I keep on hand. And basically what I'm going to do, the filter comes into it from this side here. And I have an existing 14 by 20 return air drop. And the installing company used 3-foot long ductwork. So basically I'm going to hit this with 14 by 20 duct going this way. And we're going to transition from 14 by 20 to 20 by 25, and then back to 14 by 20 underneath of this. With a 6-inch offset, I can run this over here about 6 inches. And that kind of helps, I don't want to have a square offset with all of my, that sharp, steep angle there. Better to have two angles about halfway than one great big sharp angle. So let me show you how I came up with the doing the math on this. The math is the hard part, but it's not really the hard part if you draw enough pictures. Okay, we're going to be transitioning in and out of 14 by 20 in 3 foot. Okay, I know that my filter rack is 8.5 inches tall. Okay, I'm going to S-lock all of this together, so I'm going to lose an inch of that 8.5 in, I'm going to lose an inch twice. So that's 2 inches from 8.5. That gives me 6.5 inches of effective ductwork length in my filter rack. So 36 minus 6.5 inches is pretty near 29.5. 29.5 divided by 2 is 14 3/4. So that's how tall we're going to make the sides of this. And I also just wrote that down to remind myself to put a 6-inch offset to the back. So here's kind of a sketch of what I'm going to do. Okay, here's my 6-inch offset to the back. We're going to call this the front that way. So we're starting off here 14 inches and 25 inches at the top. Okay, and we're making this 14 3/4 inches tall. So we know about where all of our cut lines are. Now this over here, this side here, and this side here, we're going to, after we get this angle generated, we are going to measure off of this line that way, and add a 1/4 inch for our quarter turn for our Pittsburgh. So we'll get to that in just a second. So now I'm not above drawing pictures to help myself double check myself before I go cutting up tin. And you boys should not be either. You should always, tin knocking, and especially making transitions and stuff, you've got to be able to see it in your head. Some people have that gift, some people don't. Even if you're gifted with this, you should still double check yourself as much as you can before you go whacking tin. So here's my 14 3/4. Here's my 8.5. Okay, we're going to overlap that 8.5 with an S-lock here and here. And we're going to have about a 1 inch. It'll actually be 15/16 or 7/8, but as long as we're pretty close. So that's 8.5 minus an inch minus an inch. We're subtracting an inch here, we're subtracting an inch here. So that's 6.5 inches and another 14 3/4. So you add all them up. Okay, twice 3/4 is an inch and a half plus another half is 2 inches. So 14 and 6 is 20, 22, 26, 36 inches in knot. So we've got a 36 knot stack up here, and we're replacing a piece of 36 inch from end to end ductwork. So I think we're about right. Okay, I know the glare is terrible. I am sorry about that. I'll try to when I get things laid out, I'll try to roll this around. So we know we need to step in 6 inches for we're going to call this our 14-inch part. We're going to call this our 25-inch part. There goes the furnace kicking on. Hang on. So turn the furnace off. I'll just have to work faster to stay warm. So here's our 25-inch side, and here's a 14-inch side. Now we know we're going to have a 6-inch offset here. So I'm just going to take my ruler here. Now we're going to burn an inch or so on this end, because we know we've got a little offset here. So we're going to burn an inch there, or inch and a half. Now we're going to come in 6 inches and make us a mark for our offset. And now we're going to go over here 25 inches, make us another mark. Now we're going to square down on those lines. This one just needs squared down a little bit. Now this 6-inch line needs squared pulled all the way down to the bottom. And we need to square down a little bit over here. Now we can take this line that we pulled down from the top and measure over 14 inches. And square that line up. So here's our edge, 6 inches. We measured 6 inches over, squared down, and then made us a mark at 25 and pulled it down. We measured off of this line 14 inches. So there's our transition rough laid out. Now I'm going to go get my 1-inch notchers, and we're going to notch on these 4 lines that we pulled. Okay, so I've got it notched, and I've struck a line from the point of my notch to the point of my notch. And I held my notchers square with the edges. Now I'm just going to step over a 1/4 inch, make me another line. Now I'm going to cut off on them lines and cut my raggedy edges off. When I get done, it'll look something like that. So I'm going to use one of these 2 as a pattern, and then I'm going to copy them off. And I need 4 of these pieces, because we tried our best to make everything symmetrical. Okay, so one of the things that I'm really good at is screwing things up. So what I've done after I got all 4 of my pieces cut up is I matched them to make one transition, and then I marked them in. This is the inside. That way when I turn my quarters end up making, you know, my quarters end up pointing towards the inside. So, and I also marked them 1 and 2, because I'm going to have 2 transitions. I don't want to get things twisted and turned and jacked around, because these are not 100%, they're not symmetrical. You can't flip them in for end. They're about, an inch off from being symmetrical. So, to generate our size, our Pittsburgh piece, what we do is we measure from the quarter notch to the quarter notch, or this 1 inch down notch where we've turned our quarters. We measure from there. This one measures 14 1/4, and then we add 2 inches because our side piece is going to be this long and then come out another inch on either end. This one will be bent down this way, this one will be bent up that way. So we need 14 1/4 plus 2, that's 16 1/4. This one was 13 3/4 plus 2, 15 3/4. So I'm going to go ahead, I've got my lengths cut to width. Now I'm going to cut the lengths on them and get them notched out and run them through Pittsburgh machine. Now I've been saying that this is 20 inches wide. Well, it's really, the existing ductwork is really 20 1/2 inches, 14 by 20 1/2 inches. And I'm just going to make that fit with my 20 by 25 filter box. I mean, I can make a 1/2 inch work, especially with a transition like this. A no throat transition is pretty easy to have give and take. So I'll get these notched and Pittsburghed, and we'll be right back. All right, one of the things I like to do, especially when I've got stuff like this transition that I'm using a inch by inch notch instead of an inch by 3/4 notch, is I like to mark which sides are getting a Pittsburgh on them, because I'm old and easily confused, and well, we've all Pittsburghed the wrong side at some point or another, if we're honest. And this also tells me, if I can see the P, I know that that's the inside. Here, I'll throw this one in at no additional charge. When you're hammering stuff like this, whether it's an elbow, a transition, or sometimes even 2-piece duct, and it's unmanageable, and you hammer this side, that side pops out, and then you're chasing it, get you some of these little magnetic airheads. Easy peasy Japanesey. Now that's all going to stand there while I'm hammering the Pittsburgh. So here we go, all put together. Moment of truth. Oh my goodness. I'm an 1/8 inch too tall. Oh, it's the end of the world. This is ductwork. We're not building a fine Swiss watch here. Okay, so when I put this together, I did mark on my side pieces which way are the front, which way is the back. And when I stuck her all together, I made sure and I turned my S-locks to where the transition pieces are on the outside of this piece. So I think I need to make a video about S-locks, maybe about building S-locks, different kinds of S-locks, what kind to use where. Everybody's gotten spoiled because the new lock former machines, I mean, you just feed them scrap sheet metal and they poop out S-locks like sauce through a goose. But knowing how to make S-locks would be a handy thing to know, especially if you're a small shop guy like I am, and I'm not going to ever probably buy a $35,000 lock former machine. It's just out of the scope of what I can do and what I can justify. I mean, I don't build that much ductwork in a decade. But anyway, now normally, if I'm going to S-lock a transition on all four sides or S-lock something on four sides, I'll drill and screw or drill and rivet together. This I will probably just tape it. This does not have to have any strength at all. It's supported on the bottom. There's some duct pushing down on the top a little bit, but if the bottom is supported, it ain't going nowhere. It can't come apart, is what I'm trying to say. I did not cross break any of this. It doesn't really need it. My static pressures are so low, and each individual section of ductwork is so small that it's not going to pop. Now, if I was doing this in 3 foot instead of 14.5 inches or 14 3/4 inches, yeah, I'd cross break it because it would pop. So any old way, that's about all we got for this video. I can't think of nothing else to say. Y'all drive safe. Watch for deer. Oh, camera.